Awesome. We love bonds here at Bloomberg. So I had a real specific question about the stadium deal.
Yeah.
There's $445 million in debt standing on the convention center now. You're talking about tearing down part of it, putting another $350 million floating bonds to pay for that. We're not even paying for the first set of bonds. I think that's coming out of the general fund.
Let's parse through this. Let's parse through this.
Okay.
This is a good one to talk about. First, why is it different? You know, whenever a deal is presented to me, I always say, why me? Right? So why us? Well, the NFL is in a different place. People understand the importance of their national TV business, but that's supported by sold-out local stadiums. You go to San Diego, you go to Oakland, you go to Jacksonville. They don't have that blessing there right now. So the NFL need to find a home. There's no public money for stadiums. There's no in-run money anymore in Houston. So we're the only city that can privately finance a stadium. So you say, first, why are they here? I think they're here for the right set of reasons, and hopefully we're not going to get our pants taken this time. They're going to build the $1 billion facility all by themselves. They'll pay fair market value rent for the land that the city provides them to build it on. Pretty clean. The hair, but the opportunity for us comes with our convention. Right now we have a South Hall and a West Hall which are not contiguous. Talk to any of our convention customers or event customers and they'll say, well, we really like contiguous space. If it's not contiguous, you're not competitive. So that's kind of looked at as Siberia when it comes to booking a convention. So we need to make it contiguous. And by the way, it's falling down of its own accord. 93% of convention spaces in this country have undergone a capital improvement program in the last decade. We're in the 7% who haven't. Okay, so we're going to a bad place if we don't do something. Now, what the Anschutz Group have proposed to do is to make the space contiguous, which costs a couple $100 million, and to build new parking, additional parking, to facilitate events. Collective cost about that is $350. We have existing bonds in the facility, Chris, you're right. Those have to be paid back. The city incurred those to build the South Hall and everything else. They have nothing to do with this project. Those are general fund obligations. Wish we didn't have them, but we do. What the Anschutz Group has said for the new bonding is simple. It's a city-owned asset. You have to be the bonder. And by the way, you can facilitate tax-exempt rates, so why not? But the only source of repayment for those comes first from taxes only in that facility. So seat tax. We have one at Staples Center. You pay $40 for the circus. If you look carefully, there's a $2 event fee. You pay $180 for the Lakers, there's a $2 event fee. They're going to do the same thing in the stadium. That'll provide some source of interest in principal and repayment bonds. And Anschutz has said publicly, they will guarantee the rest. So the $350 is not coming from the city. It is all privately financed by Anschutz. And I know how those bonds will be sold. So Bank of America or Goldman Sachs are going to call into the bond buyers and say, here's an interesting one for you. Tax-exempt rate, Phil Anschutz guarantee. How do you like it? They're not going to talk about how many hot dogs are sold, they're going to sell it that card. That's all part of the puts and takes with Anschutz. But the bottom line is they've guaranteed the payment of principal and interest on the bonds, not a nickel from the city. Pretty good so far, right? And by the way, we have an enhanced convention business. So the enhanced convention and event business for us means we'll be able to compete for not only more conventions because we have contiguous space, but events. Okay, Final Fours right now don't go to conventional stadiums anymore. You can't see 50,000, they're not coming. There's not only no place in Los Angeles, there's no place in California to hold a Final Four. Final Four is even bigger than the All-Star game. The All-Star game we had sold out hotels throughout the town. People they come for 3-4 days, they shop, they put money in our economy. First Super Bowl was actually held in California. Last one was in 70 some odd. And Arizona again was getting off the reservation on some issue. It was Martin Luther King at that time, so they came here. Right? So, Super Bowls, those types of events can and will come. We can compete for with these new set of assets. And tourism is one of our great untapped opportunities in Los Angeles. Again, particularly if we can get the feds to help us with visa policies and other things which allow more people to visit.
Just to clarify, make sure I got the math right. So the new bonds cost $35 million in interest payments, $28 million, I think. $9 million in ticket tax. Phil Anschutz pays the rest.
Correct.
And on the old bonds,
the old bonds are there where they are.
All of the money from the new convention center and parking goes to help pay off that. So presumably there might be more money to pay off the interest on.
We will make money. There will be net more general fund money from having more events the incremental revenues from the center, from having more TOT when people come to town. So the general fund will be enhanced, which gives us money to do a better job of paying back the $400 million. But we have the $400 million irrespective of whether this happens or not.
Yeah, and on that point, is there an analogy elsewhere in the U.S. that comes to mind that you would use to support your contention that this is definitely in the best interests of Los Angeles and California?
I start the other way around. I say, show me how it's not. This one is so obvious and easiest, okay? Thousands of construction jobs, thousands of permanent jobs. We could debate whether it's X or Y thousand, but thousands. Probability of new hotels, by the way. The success begets success, a few more downtown hotels, so there's a couple thousand more in each of those categories. Privately financed. It's not just the billion that's privately financed. I mean, it's wise for the city to be the issuer. I wish it weren't, because the public confusion around, oh, you're issuing bonds, somehow people think that the city's going to be paying it back. They're not. Right? So we've got somebody willing to risk $1.35 billion of our community. I hope Anschutz does really well, because I hope other people will follow and say we can make money in Los Angeles. Creates jobs, creates the general fund. This location is better serviced by public transport than any stadium in the country. What's not in the public good with that? People are right to ask questions, and I think that the average person might be confused when someone says the city issues bonds, but not understanding that the obligor is Philip Anschutz. That makes a big difference. If the city were coming up with $350 million, it's a very different proposition. I wouldn't be for it. But if we can make sure, I'm actually going to meet with him or his team shortly, if we can make sure they're money good, so that we're not going to touch our funds to pay the $350 back. All right. Anybody who wants to invest almost $1.5 billion in our community, I'll travel around the world. I'll hang outside their office and try to convince them what can we do to help. And that's kind of where I am on this. Now, we set up this blue ribbon panel to make sure it's done right, to make sure there is no public money, to make sure the jobs are real, and make sure the jobs go to Angelinos. I'm not interested in seeing a bunch of Texas license plates. People come to build a facility who don't live in Los Angeles.
And I think you've said this before. Could you repeat for us what your expectation is the annual, in effect, return will be for Los Angeles once this is?
We don't know yet. We haven't seen. This is, to use a football analogy, we're still in the first quarter. The Anschutz Group are having prepared, and we have some other outside experts looking at what they think the job creation will be. But we're talking thousands, if not tens of thousands of jobs, many of which are recurring, not just construction jobs. We're looking at a net positive impact to the general fund. Can't dimension it yet, but it's bigger than a bread box. We're just talking $5,000. It's real money. Those two things, all good. Like I said, anybody else, if you know anybody else who's got $1.5 billion to invest in Los Angeles, let me know.
And what other cities have missed is getting that private guarantee from the public bonds.
Well, people have gone down this trap before. I mean, we've met with the league. We've told them very clearly. Okay, the signing ceremony is simple. Roger Goodell's going to have $1. He's going to sit there and hand it to the mayor and say, "Thank you for allowing us in our community. We will pay you." Where other people have gotten off track, or other communities have said, well, there's this economic benefit for having more visitors and their spending power, and so we will dig in the public coffers and somehow there's a payback. So that's the path Minnesota's going down right now. That's the path other communities have gone. We don't have the money. Even if we thought it was a good idea, we're broke. So our job is to make sure we don't put a nickel into this, and we won't. But it's net positive, both from a fiscal standpoint and certainly from a job standpoint.
What does the NFL think of that, though? I mean, in the past, it seems like they've wanted that public participation as part of coming to a city to show that commitment.
It's not showing commitment. It's just money. It's no different than the discussion they're having with labor. It's not about commitment. It's because they can get it. If somebody shows up with Enron money in a different city, or some other city or state says, "Here's the NFL. Here's a few $100 million. Come here," they go there. That's not the real world today. So I like where Los Angeles stands in the mix. City of Industry, by the way, also is a viable proposal in that sense. $100 million and the Roski Group is a great group appointment. We win either way. I work for the City of Los Angeles. I think we win more if it's in Los Angeles. But they're not looking for public commitment. They're looking for money. There is no money to be had. No Enron money, no public money.
You're not worried about the same precedent, though, where in the future when other cities have a team leaving or wanting to come there, You can say, hey, LA did with that public money.
It's the league's problem, not mine. They
So-
certainly seem to be interested. I've heard Roger Goodell publicly, I think on your media's other platforms as well, talking about how they think Los Angeles is very viable. But like I said, take a step back and understand the economics of their business. If you don't have supportive local communities, meaning sold-out stadiums, their model doesn't work. This stadium will be sold out. Suites will be sold out. The economic viability of a privately financed location is evidenced by the largest naming rights deal ever with farmers before the stadium's even entitled. Gives you some sense of the buying power and the support, the economic support in this community. Jacksonville's a different issue. They got all the public money to support the infrastructure, they're not sold out. There's not enough money in the Jacksonville economy to support the local NFL franchise. That's not the issue.